Hi guys, and welcome to another quick video tutorial here on the Kiki, Manny Photography and Orm's blog. My name is Manny, and in today's tutorial I want to introduce you guys to the next few upcoming Photoshop tutorials on Photoshop basics and tools. Yes, that is right, basics. Nobody really wants to know about basics. That's so boring. Yes, I know, but we all need to know the basics to become good Photoshoppers. So in the next few tutorials, it's all going to be about tips and tricks and like basics and the tools, how I work with my tools. Alright, so if you're new to Photoshop, this might be super handy for you, and for those of you who are advanced already, this will be a bit boring, so please switch off. Alright, so let's get started. First thing that I did today is just imported my image from the desktop right onto the icon of Photoshop, and here I am, nothing else. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is pretty much want to unlock my layer and just work on my normal layer and rename it to original, because I want to be working very constructive and fall back onto my original layer if I do something wrong. So first thing, to unlock this, double click on here and just rename that to original, and give it a red foreground color, mode normal, and 100% opacity. Okay, that, and directly you'll see that our layer has been unlocked in the red color and is selected and has been renamed to original. Now the next step that I actually want to do is duplicate that layer and work on that second layer. So there's two ways of doing that. Either I can drag it down here onto the new layer icon and drop it, create a duplicate via that, or press Command J and duplicate via that. For all my Windows friends, you can press Ctrl J and duplicate it via that. Double click on here, and I'm just going to rename that to layer 2. Now in these tutorials I also want to discuss some shortcuts that I always use. I know there are thousands of shortcuts for Photoshop. I just use a few of them to work quicker and just to upgrade my workflow through that. So in these tutorials I will talk a little bit about shortcuts as well. Alright, so on layer 2 for the start now, I want to pretty much show you for the tutorial the marking tool and the move tool for the start. Just keep these tutorials short and sweet, not too long. Alright, as you guys can see on my desktop here, I currently have two rulers, and these rulers are pretty much very handy if you're working with the move tool and or creating borders or want to just move your image a little bit. Alright, for the start, the move tool, basically very simple. It's just a tool to move your image around on layers and stuff. As you guys can see, currently I'm on this layer 2, and now with the move tool, just moving my layer up and down, left and right, and so on. You can also use your cursors up, right, left, whatever, down to place or to like to space your image or layer into the right position. Now why I actually opened these rulers is because I want to show you guys, if you click onto those rulers now, you can actually create guidelines. Just quickly, if you don't have these rulers, go to view, and here you go, rulers, select that, then rulers will come up. Alright, go to rulers, click here, and then this weird fuzzy logo or icon appears, and then with that you can actually drag down, and then you're actually creating guidelines. Now on the left hand side here, you can actually see where you're placing your guidelines. I want to place mine right here. Okay, nothing happened now, so I have to do it again. Place it right over here. There we go, one guideline. And then on the left hand side as well, move that, just hold with your mouse and drag it just until there. Stop, place it, and directly we've got a nice few guidelines in here. You can create as many guidelines as you want to, and later on I'll show you guys how to deselect those guidelines again. Now again on layer 2 with the move tool, I'm quickly going to move my layer again, my image, and basically what I want to do, why I did these guidelines, is because I want to snap my image right into these guidelines. As you guys can also see, the closer I get with the layer, it directly snaps to these guidelines. So whoops, there we go, it's already snapped. I can also use my navigator, just zoom in very closely. I know a lot of graphic designers and stuff use these guidelines to just, if they do logos and place stuff, so you can work very precise with this. So if you on your layer now, you can use your cursors up and down as well to just work very precise with these guidelines. They come in very handy, and I often use them. Alright, leave it like that. And that's pretty much how I use my guidelines. Okay, zoom out a little bit more. Now I'm just with spacebar, you're pretty much holding. That's one shortcut I actually wanted to show you guys. Spacebar goes directly into the hand tool down here with H, or also spacebar, and you can just move your whole canvas around. Alright, back to layer 2, back to move tool, and over here I'm just going to drag my layer, my original or the second layer over here, fit that into size again, and want to pretty much go on to the next tool. But now I still have these guidelines. How to get rid of that? Just go up here to the top to File, go all the way down to Clear Guides, and directly the guides are gone. So you clear and you can go on with your tools. Alright, zoom in a little bit more. And as you guys, I don't know if you watched the tutorial on how to Photoshop, there I basically explain how to work in Photoshop, like what is your menus, application bars, panels, and tool panels, and all the panels here, workspaces, and so on. So if you're new, watch that tutorial. Then you'll also notice that I said if you're working with different tools, have a look. The application bar always changes. So what does this actually mean? This means that if I'm selecting a different tool, I can tweak that tool a little bit and fine-tune that tool a little bit. Say for instance we were in the move tool, and now we're going to go into the marking tool and have a look. Directly the application bar here at the top changes, and we got a few more options that we can actually adjust. So one more tip here, right click onto the elliptical marking tool, rectangular marking tool, and directly you will be taken into another few options from that marking tool where we have rectangular, elliptical, side row, single column, and so on. So I'm going to select the rectangular marking tool at the moment. At the top here, by the way, you can also have some presets if you want to. You can have just a normal selection, new selection. You can have add to selection, subtract from selection, or say even intersect with selection. You can feather your selection by how many pixels you want to. Anti-aliases, I never really work with that. Then style, normal, fixed ratio, or fixed size. You just have to enter your width and height. Refine edge, I'm going to cover that in some future tutorials. Alright, let's go back to our elliptical marking tool, or rectangular marking tool, sorry. Then on our layer 2 again, just bear in mind, wherever I'm going to do this, you'll have to work on your layer 2. Alright, in here I'm going to make a rough selection now. Just have my normal selection. Alright, so in this selection, pretty much I can paint now or brush or whatever, do whatever I like to in this selection. Everything that I will do now in Photoshop will only affect this area in the selection. So just bear in mind, if you wanted to change the outside, say over here, it will not work. You can only change the inside, because you will only affect what you have selected. Let me show it to you guys quickly. If I go to brush now, and with white foreground color, and if I start painting now, I actually started painting here, right on the left hand side next to the arm. Nothing happens. This is because we have just selected this area. If I go through the selection now, have a look, directly the brush paints. This is because everything that you have selected, only that will be affected. So just bear that in mind. Alright, in history, I'm going to go back a little bit to rectangular marking tool again. So say for instance, if you press right click now, you can select that inverse, and if you selected that inverse, that means now that you have selected all of the rest, not the inside anymore. You have just selected the outside. So if I'm going to press B now for brush and paint in here, you will pretty much see that I'm just affecting the outside, nothing in the inside. So just bear in mind, if you select this area, you will working on the outside. If you select just this area, you'll work on the inside. So this is just a technique for me to work on different selected areas. Okay, press Command D and maybe Command Z to go, no, maybe I'll just go in the history panel back to rectangular marking tool, and now press Command D to deselect that again. If you want to also, in the marking tool, you can actually pretty much just create another selection again and press right click again, and in here you've got a few options as well, like deselect, select inverse, feather, refine edge, save selection, make work of path. All of these options, we will sometimes use these in different techniques if we're working on some different stuff, but for today's tutorial, I just want to show you guys, press right click, and in here you've got a few more options like free transform, transform that selection if you want to fill that. Say for instance, I want to fill that quickly. I can easily go to new layer, create a new layer, just going to go over here, new layer 3, yes, maybe just a different color, orange, okay, and on this orange layer I want to basically just create a black block. Say you're just doing like a border, or you want to just fill this a little bit with black, then you can pretty much just very easily press right click again, go to fill, and fill all of that with the foreground color or whatever you want to, black, gray, white, patterns, whatever you want to color there, foreground, background colors. I'm going to say black for now, blending mode, normal, opacity 100, yes, okay. Now it has directly created a black block on a new layer and has not affected our layer 2. We can still blend that in and out if we want to. If we want to deselect that again, press Command D, like I said with the shortcuts, Command D, and you're out of that again. Now have a look to this is still a very hard edge, right? So I want to actually create a new block that is feathered. I'm going to deselect that or just delete that layer with backspace again. Do exactly the same again. Create another new layer over here, or another new selection, sorry. Right click again with fill new layer. There we go. New layer. Going to say new layer again with orange. Okay. Sorry, before I even do that, I have to press Command D to deselect that whole area. We'll still keep our new layer. What I'll do in here at the top to feather it, I'll have to go to feathering, and I will say I want to feather it to 5 pixels. Alright, then going to create a new selection around my whole area and have exactly that selection. Now I want to create a black block onto this with a feathered, so we feathered already. Now I'm going to press right click. We created a new layer already, so don't worry about that. Now we're going to go to fill that again with black, and going to say okay. Deselect that with Command D again, and have a look. You can already see it. Have a look how much we feathered the edge over here. So this comes in handy quite a lot. If you used to say copy paste something with a selection and you want to feather that, you can feather it directly from the top here. Or if you want to create a fill layer or whatever, new selection with fill, you can also feather it via that way. Okay, deselect that again, and then I'll just go back into here quickly again into the marking tool, and in here you've got a elliptical marking tool, single row and single column. For the tutorial I'm also still going to discuss the elliptical marking tool. You can basically just do the same, just want to feather my feathering back to 0 pixels, and in here select her face again, just make my circle all the way around. Now there's also one more technique that I also wanted to discuss. If you're in marking tool, you can pretty much move your selection around, right? Because you're currently in the marking tool still. If you now select your move tool, you will not move the selection, you will move the whole selection with whatever you selected. So this means that you're moving the whole picture. Say for instance, if I'm going to turn off my original layer, you will directly see the difference. On layer 2, I'm basically moving this whole selection, and most probably you don't want that. You just want to move the selection. So bear in mind you have to be on marking tool to move the selection. Okay, I'm just going to go back in my history panel to elliptical marking tool over here, then again marking tool, and now I can move my selection. Alright, space my selection into the middle, and now again I can use brush or whatever I want to do and just again paint on here. If I want to maybe extend that whole selection, I should then over here go back to the marking tool, and in here go to new or plus add selection. As you guys can also see on my cross there's a small plus, so now I can pretty much just make over here a new selection and just draw with that selection into the other selection, and directly it will be added like a small ear. Say for instance I want to do another one over here, then it creates the as well. Or if you want to do dots in somewhere in the picture, you can also do that. And now if I go back with brush, everything that has been selected will be affected again. So I'm painting very roughly now just to show you guys what's really happened. And I'm also painting now currently on layer 2, so if I deselect this will all be on layer 2. Just bear in mind to create a new layer before you even do something with the selections. Alright, say for instance you want to get rid of that selections again, you can also go to your marking tool again and go into the second option here at the top in subtract selection. And then again, just you see that next to my cross is a small minus there, and now I can pretty much just go with my selection over whatever I want to select and deselect. Just drop it, and directly this has been deselected. Now as you guys can see, still our brush lines here are on layer 2, so that was a mistake. We should have actually created a new layer and then painted on there. But just to show you guys how to work with this tool, you can deselect again these small areas over here. So this tool comes in handy sometimes, and I mostly use that for, I don't know, if I want to create some small round shapes or squares or so, then I mostly use these tools over here. Alright, so basically this was my first tutorial on how to work with the tools and basics. If you still have any questions, please write me to team@mannyphotography.co.za. I'm glad to help you with your questions, and thank you for watching. See you next week on another tutorial on tools and basics. Thank you, bye bye.